Quick question. Did this year feel shorter than the year before? And the year before that, shorter than the one before that? Almost every adult I know says yes. Almost no one knows why. Spoiler. Your brain isn't slipping. It's doing this on purpose, and that's actually the more interesting story. Okay, so first, it's not just you. Researchers have polled hundreds of people across the age range, like 14 to 94, and the feeling that time accelerates as you get older is consistent. It shows up in moment-to-moment estimates. It shows up in retrospective ones. It shows up in the boring kitchen table, wow, where did the year go kind of way. But here's the thing that surprised them. Age explains only about 10% of how people experience time. The other 90% is something else. So what's the something else? Mostly it's what your brain decided to do with the year, and what your brain decided is to get really, really efficient. The same upgrade that lets you drive to work without noticing every turn? That's what's stealing your years. One detail the field has long noticed while we're here: if you ask any adult over 40 for their 10 clearest memories, most of them will land between ages 15 and 25. Not because that decade was objectively better, because it was full of firsts. Your brain stamped those years harder. That's a story about memory, not about right now, but it's the same machine doing the stamping. Before we get to what's actually happening, two intuitive theories to clear out of the way. The first guess most people land on: it's because there's less time left. Like the brain knows you're closer to the end and panics. Reasonable enough. Wrong, though. The acceleration shows up in moment-to-moment counting tests in quiet rooms with no death cues anywhere. People over 50 silently counting to 120 hit 120 at 86 seconds. There's no mortality framing in sit here and count. The clock is just running slower. The second guess is the math one. Each year is a smaller slice of your life. At 10, a year is 1/10. At 50, a year is 1/50th. So a year should feel 5 times shorter, right? Half right. The actual math turns out to be gentler. Subjective time doesn't track one over your age, it tracks one over the square root of your age. Which means a 50-year-old's year feels about 45% as long as a 10-year-old's, not 20%. The intuition captures something. It just overshoots. There's also a theory that aging neurons literally process fewer images per second. Slower hardware, less time recorded per real second. Elegant might be part of the picture. Definitely not the whole picture. The whole picture is encoding. Okay, so here's the real picture. 3 things, all running at the same time. One is what your brain is doing in the moment, how it segments experience into mental chunks. One is the actual ticking speed of your internal clock, and one is what survives into memory. Each on its own explains some of the feeling. Together, they explain almost all of it. Start with what's happening in the moment. Last year, researchers ran the cleanest experiment yet on this. They put 577 adults, ages 18 to 88, in an fMRI scanner and showed everyone the same 8-minute Hitchcock clip. They tracked when each person's brain transitioned from one internal mental state to the next. Younger brains kept switching states. New scene, new state, new emotion, new state. Older brains lingered. Each state lasted longer. Fewer transitions, same clip. What that means in plain English: the same 8 minutes registered as fewer mental events for an older brain. The clip wasn't shorter. The number of moments stamped into memory was. A teenager watches a 45-minute episode of a show. Later, they can tell you about the cold open, the midpoint twist, 3 separate jokes, the cliffhanger. 5 distinct moments. Easy. A 70-year-old watching the same episode remembers a general mood, maybe one image. Same show, same 45 minutes. Different number of stamps. Multiply that by every TV episode, every meeting, every walk to the store. Your year contains the same number of clock minutes it always did. Your brain is just laying down fewer stamps per minute. So when you look back, there's less to remember. And less to remember is what short feels like in retrospect. Next, the clock itself. Your brain has an internal timer, not a literal clock, a circuit, tucked into a region called the basal ganglia that uses dopamine to tick. More dopamine, faster ticks. Less dopamine, slower ticks. Caffeine, which boosts dopamine, speeds up your sense of time. That hour at the coffee shop feels shorter than the same hour in a quiet waiting room. Tranquilizers do the opposite. Slow the dopamine, slow the clock. The aging brain naturally dials its dopamine system down. A little. Not catastrophically, just a steady, gentle drift. So the same circuit ticks slower. Same hour, fewer ticks counted. Here's how that shows up if you measure it directly. In one experiment, 233 people sat with their eyes closed and silently counted to 120. People under 30 did pretty well. They hit 120 around 115 seconds. Pretty accurate. People over 50 hit 120 at 86 seconds. They lost almost half a minute. Not in memory, not in retrospect, in real time sitting still, counting along. Translation. Imagine a 90-minute meeting. The intern walks out and says, "Wow, that was 90 minutes." Pretty close. The VP walks out and says, "Maybe 70?" Same room. Same actual clock. Different internal one. Both are wrong in the same direction. But the older one is more wrong because their internal one has been quietly running slow for a decade. And then there's memory. Here's the part nobody tells you. Your brain doesn't actually feel how long a year was. It estimates. And the way it estimates is to ask, how much new stuff did I bookmark? A year of new commutes, new friends, new failures, new haircuts you regret. Your brain has 100 things to point at. That year goes in the books as long. A year of the same 9 to 5 with the same lunch routine and the same after-work podcast. Your brain has nothing to point at. So the year vanishes. You can prove this on yourself right now. Try to remember what you did last Tuesday. Specifically last Tuesday. The food, the meetings, what you wore. If you draw a blank, and most people do, that Tuesday is gone. And the whole week containing it is going to feel shorter when you look back at it next year. Try it on a smaller scale. Think about your morning commute. First day at a new job, you notice everything. The billboards, the exit that splits off too suddenly, the smell of the coffee place by the second light, the driver who cuts you off on the on-ramp. Every detail is data. Your brain doesn't know yet what matters, so it's logging the whole thing. By the third month, you arrive at work with no memory of the drive. None. You were there the whole time. You drove the car. Your brain just didn't bother encoding it. The drive is solved. The brain isn't broken. It's done its job. And the half hour your body spent on the road this morning doesn't exist anywhere in your memory. Now try to remember the week you started a new job, or moved into a new apartment, or had a hard conversation with someone you love. You can probably name details from a specific morning. The food, the weather, who said what. The brain didn't have more time that week. It had more to encode. The price of efficiency is your brain has gotten really good at deciding which weeks aren't worth encoding. And the weeks it doesn't encode, they don't show up in the year-long summary it gives you back in December. Here's where it gets strange, though. The clock in the moment and the memory in retrospect, they don't agree. They flat out disagree all the time. Think about your last real trip somewhere. Somewhere with new food, new streets, walking around getting lost on purpose. While you were on it, the day flew by. You barely registered an afternoon before the next morning came. It was relentlessly fast in the moment. But then you came home, and someone asked, "So how was the trip?" And you started talking. And the 4 days felt like 2 weeks. The whole thing felt long. Because in memory, it was dense. You bookmarked everything. Now compare that to the week before you left. Boring office week. Felt long in the moment. Wednesday took forever. But you got back from the trip a week later, and you couldn't have told someone what happened that pre-trip week if your life depended on it. It dragged then. It's gone now. That's not a bug. That's the two clocks doing their separate jobs. One counts attention to the moment. The other counts memory stamps that survived. They give you opposite answers because they're measuring opposite things. Which means the way you describe a year long, or short depends entirely on which clock you're asking. So, where did the year go is really a question about your memory clock, and lately it hasn't had much to count. Okay, here's the part that proves the whole mechanism is real by showing it can swing the other way. Ever had a near miss? A bike tire sliding on gravel? A foot off the curb? A car that came closer than you expected? A moment where your body knew before your mind did. People consistently describe those moments as time slowing down. Frame by frame, you can replay the 3 seconds. The hour before, nothing. The 3 seconds, every detail. Here's what's happening. The brain has a setting for "this is important," encode everything. It just normally has that setting off. Most of life, the efficient brain is on cruise control, throwing out everything that isn't surprising. Under threat, that flips. A specific brainstem region, fancy name, locus coeruleus, floods the system with a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine. The brain switches into stamp everything mode. 3 seconds become hyper-detailed. Frame by frame becomes the way you remember it. It's the same machine that's compressing your weeks into nothing. It just has a panic mode where it does the opposite, which is weirdly kind of comforting. The efficiency setting isn't permanent damage to your brain. It's the default setting on a knob that can absolutely turn the other way. And here's the harder case. The one that proves time and memory are the same machine. When Alzheimer's progresses, two things break at the same time: forming new memories and feeling how long it's been. Patients can lose 4 hours and ask the same question every 5 minutes. What time is it? What time is it? Genuinely surprised by the answer every time. The clocks on the wall are right. Their clock is broken. And it's broken in a very specific way. It's broken alongside memory. Same brain region, the hippocampus, does both jobs, encoding new memories, estimating how much time has passed. When the hippocampus goes dark, both lights go out together. You can't form the bookmarks, so you can't feel the duration. That's the strongest possible proof of what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. The feeling we call time perception is mostly memory in disguise. Strip out the memory, you strip out the time. Bookmark more, the time stretches. Bookmark less, the time compresses. Lose the ability to bookmark at all, and time loses all texture. The thing you've been calling time isn't actually time. It's a story your brain tells you about how much it bookmarked. So, back to the question. Where did this year go? The honest answer is your brain didn't bookmark most of it. Not because anything is wrong with you, because your brain has gotten very good at not bookmarking what it's already seen. That's an upgrade, not a tragedy. The same brain that lets you drive to work without thinking is the brain that's compressing your year. You can't really have one without the other. The cost of automatic anything is that the automatic parts don't show up later. Here's the bigger reframe. Childhood didn't have more time. Childhood had more attention paid to time. A 4-year-old in a kitchen is collecting frames. Tile patterns, the smell of toast, the way the sunlight hits the floor. Every detail. By 40, you walk through the same kitchen and notice the fridge is on. Same room. Different number of frames recorded. Try this one closer to home. Think about a summer where you actually did something different. Took a camera on walks, mentioned things to friends at dinner, walked through a neighborhood you'd been driving past for years, and finally noticed what was on the corner. That summer feels long in memory. The months weren't different. Your brain just stamped more of them. Now think about the summer you watched a streaming series and ordered the same takeout 3 nights a week. Same months. You probably can't tell me which week of August you finished the series. The summer is gone. You didn't lose time. You spent it on stuff your brain wasn't going to encode. And here's the part that's actually useful. Age explains about 10% of how fast your year feels. 10%. The other 90 is what you did with it. Your brain bookmarks what's different, so give it different. A new walk home. A spice you've never used. A neighborhood you've driven past 1,000 times and never walked through. You can't slow down time. You can give your brain more reasons to count it. See you in the next one.